All right, everybody. Hey, guess what? It is Sunday, October 28th, 2018. It is currently 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, p.m. And you are listening to Education with Ed. Now, this is the 10th installment of the Bill of Rights, so we've got the 10th Amendment coming up. Ed, why don't you let the people know in your own words what the 10th Amendment is, and take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and we're glad to have you joining us with this educational knowledge we're passing on. I got a couple of court cases I want to bring up, too, tonight. So before we get into a lot of stuff, what I want to do is play this audio tape, the one thing, or videotape, and YouTube clip. And the one thing is, I want to make sure that people comprehend that there's a lot of people out there giving misinformation on our Constitution, giving misinformation about American history, and still trying to convince the general public that we are still a British colony. We are not a British colony. We are not a religious country. We are an American native country of the Great Spirit, Mother Earth, and the Creator. And it's interesting because I've been watching a lot of videos this week from different people in foreign countries, and there's one that's called, Simon Whistler. And if you've seen him on YouTube, watch out for that guy because he lies. I try to get information to him to correct him on some of the stuff on his videos, to let him know what the real truth was. He wasn't interested in the real truth. He doesn't give a damn about this country. He is from England, London, England, and he don't give a shit. He's like all the other Democrats in this country, all the other religious people that claim they care and love. Well, you know, it's amazing how religion supports rape, robbing, and murdering people, because that's how they make their income, especially pastors, ministers, reverends, all of them make their income off of your guilt and off of your demise. It is a frustrating situation that we live in this manner in this country. You know, it really disturbs me when people always try to get the Constitution and won't tell the truth about it. They don't know the truth when it comes down to it. A lot of people don't know the truth. They don't know reality. And that is the saddest part about the Constitution. It's like I've been on the phone talking to several people dealing with several new cases that have been brought up. And a free speech case that I'm going to be getting into here pretty soon. But it's interesting that people they want to change the Constitution because they don't want to learn it. They don't want to read it. They don't want to read what our forefathers of this country. And remember, the forefathers who wrote the Constitution, most of them weren't for this country, from this country. Most of them were from Spain and England. And that's the one thing that was very specified in the Constitution, a separation of religion and state. Because religion has no place in politics. It doesn't. Religion is a personal belief, a personal point of view, a personal fictitious whatever you want it. See, that's the one thing that people don't want to tell the truth about it, because if they do and people comprehended what the structure was, they couldn't make a living off of it. You know, and that is the saddest part about what's going on. And it's a shame that we don't sit there and educate the kids on the real truth. A lot of people are afraid to tell the truth on the truth. And we do live that in this country. People are terrified to tell the truth. And so when people get to learn what the truth is, and they start and learn how the courts work especially, that is the one thing, is learning how the court works. So people don't realize when you go to court, you're going to an Article 1, Section whatever, administration legislative court. Article 3 is your Constitution court, and you have to file for your Constitution court. You have to prove who you are. And that is the one thing that people don't get. You know, you have to prove your standing. And I've argued with people that says, why do I have to prove who I am? Well, we don't want you in our country. We have an immigration issue where Friday there were shots fired from the Mexican side to American side, and there were injuries, and I heard there were a couple deceased people after the shootout. So, I mean, and this is a real serious problem we have with invasion. And this has been going on in our country for the last several hundred years. All these people come from foreign countries on their boats and expect that they have a right when they come here. Sorry, you don't have a right. You have a privilege. Simple. And I have the laws to prove it. I posted it. Me and David Lee Buse were the ones who wrote the structure for Judge Scalia dealing with immigration before Judge Scalia was murdered, because we were able to prove the false implication that the general public gets on, what is that called? Democracy. See, that's the one thing that people don't know or have a concept of what democracy is or about. But a lot of people do, because without democracy, rape, robbing, and pillaging wouldn't be a problem in our country. Democracy provides it. Democracy allows it. So, and I've argued with people on that, and I prove them wrong, and they don't like it. Because it's amazing how religion dictates to people's lives instead of the Constitution. The Constitution is what gives you right. The Bible does not. Period. End of story. Never have, never will. The Constitution is the only place in the United States in the world that we have a right to our assets. Nobody else in the world has that right. The churches come in and they steal and rob and rape the kids, and we've already seen how that is, because it's all over the media how children have been raped by these people. And, of course, we have seen some justice served on that more and more, because these priests are having dramatic things happen to them because of what they've done. And see, that is the one thing, that these men and women that do this stuff don't have rights. If you are guilty of something like that, extreme, as far as I'm concerned, once you're convicted, there is no continuing your trial afterwards. It's done. It's over with. This is what gets to me on these murder trials, when somebody is bluntly proven beyond a shadow of a doubt the male or female did this, and then they go, we need to go through court processes. Oh, that's bullshit. That's all to make the court money off of the straw man account. And when you get these people out there and the general public says, no, you don't know what you're talking about, bullshit. Lawyers, doctors, attorneys, bookkeepers, all these pens, all these structures say you do not need to do this. Apparently Donald Trump is coming out with an administrative rule that says you don't need a license to travel in the United States if you're a native. I got to research that one. I just got it before I speak out of turn. I want to read that further. I just got that sent in from a group that I'm in, or private attorney generals that just sent it to me. And so, anyhow, it is interesting because people don't get, you don't need a driver's license. You don't need a business license. You do if you advertise your business, and if you're in public, and if you advertise in the media, and if you advertise. But when you're hanging up on bulletin boards and stuff like that in your community, that's not commerce. So there is a difference of learning what's lawful and illegal in a country, and don't forget, legal is the British government. say, that's the one thing. Legal is not American. Legal is a terminology we've been brain convinced and brain altered to believe into whatever the craziness that these people want to be able to tell you. And that is the most frustrating point that we are living today, is what's going on. And when we watch all this stuff that's going on in our country with all these immigrants that says that they want to take your rights away, and they think they have a right to come into this country and to do whatever they want. No, they don't. People go, well, they have a right to come here. No, they do not have a right to come here. How come they want to leave their country? How come they're not taking up arms? How come they are not sitting there defending themselves in their own country? See, that is the point, that people don't, they're not getting, they're not standing up, they're not doing this stuff. They're not protecting their bloodline. And people get on me all the time, what the heck are you keep talking about a bloodline for, Ed? Well, the point is, your bloodline is very important to the country, because if your bloodline goes back to the Constitution, that means you have rights, not privileges, right there. Simple, because your ancestry already bled on this soil for your freedom. And like the 14th Amendment, if anybody actually reads it correctly, instead of interpreting it like attorneys do for their own personal and financial gain through the court system, which they do, that's a fact, that you don't interpret that law. You don't interpret the Constitution. The Constitution is explicitly stated. That's like the Second Amendment that says thou shalt not infringe. See, when something is specified, then the attorneys will sit there and go, well, how do we know that that's what the forefathers intentionally meant, what they wrote? And it's like questioning people on their mentality of their knowledge or education or their strength. And it's the same thing that people do today. They question things without doing research. They question things without proving facts. That's the saddest part about this country. The kids are on the phones today. They're on the TV today. Most of them don't live in reality because they don't know what reality is. Because it's like kids get grown up, taught, Easter and Christmas and Halloween. All those are commercial holidays for the commercial and the banks to make an income. And if you actually do the research, all of those are pagan holidays. That's the point. They're pagan holidays. Simple fact. So when you're supporting and endorsing criminals and criminality, that's the problems that we have, that we're going with the craziness today. Now, we do have a problem with our court systems, because it's like when you file criminal charges, some are going through right now, not as many should, but, excuse me, it's really disturbing that your public employees are not enforcing their servitude. And so it is important that these people get fired and terminated and go to jail. It's, you can't give compassion to people who don't have compassion. And that's just a reality, because if you give compassion to an individual that doesn't have compassion, well, you always get stabbed in the back, don't you? So before we get into any further, we're going to play this video from this gentleman named Hughes. He is out of the East Coast. He is in the schooling system. He is a Democrat. And he says it because we played several of his videos in the past. And, he brings it up that you need lawyers and stuff. The Constitution doesn't say lawyers. He lies through his teeth. The Constitution says that you have a right to counsel. That is not a lawyer. Don't be that damn stupid. And I know that some of the dictionaries or stuff that has two terms for counsel, lawyer, or individual or group. But don't get caught up in that. Do the real history. Read what the Constitution says. Don't get distracted by interpretations of idiots or men and women who are literally out for their own personal financial gain at your expense. And that's the one thing, you know, these men and women who, even public servants, cops, that do this stuff when they're out in the field and committing crimes. They're not entitled to compassion. You know, sorry, they know what they're doing. They know the Constitution. They were given the Constitution. So when they lie, cheat, and steal, there's no compassion that should be given. Just nothing but criminal charges and making it public that they are nothing but a criminal. So anyhow, let's get this video, and I got another video next Saturday I'm going to try to get on, and it's I think it's like 9 minutes. It's a brief structure, walks you through the Constitution in a sense, but it's a good video the way it's outlined. And the other point is I want to bring up the Lighthouse Law Club videos. Please go and YouTube. We do have a connection on new.Oregon trackers. Lighthouse Law Clubs brings out a lot of good factual information. They tell it the way it is, and they're not pulling punches. So we'll get some more of those videos. We do support, at least I support, the Lighthouse Law Club because they do bring out information that they don't, that attorneys don't want you to know either. So anyhow, let's go with the video.
Hey guys, welcome to Hip Use History. So glad that you could make it. We're gonna bang out the 10th Amendment for you guys in the next few minutes as we continue our Constitution for Dummies series, explaining it simply, not because you're simple, but because everybody needs to know some basic stuff before you get to the fancy stuff. So strap on your boots of learning. We're about to knock out some 10th Amendment. Giddy up. All right, 10th Amendment. So if you're a libertarian, if you're like a Ron Paul guy or girl out there, you love the 10th Amendment. If you could have babies with the 10th Amendment, you'd have babies with the 10th Amendment. Let's look at the words and then we can talk it out. Here are the words.
The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
So there's the Reserved Powers Amendment. In terms of a mnemonic device, sometimes I'll think of the 10th Amendment as being the last seat in the Bill of Rights, thinking that it's reserved, it's saved for somebody. But basically what this means is that if it's not in the Constitution, if you can't find the power in the delegated portion of the Constitution, which mostly is Article 1, Section 8, which lists congressional powers, then if we don't give it to the federal government, then it gets kicked to the states. Very simple examples would be something like marriage laws or the DMV dealing with driver's licenses. Those are dealt at the state level. Education is basically a reserved powers. Of course, this gets muddied when we start looking at other parts of the Constitution, like the 14th Amendment, which guarantees states treat its citizens equally. So if you're talking about marriage and gay marriage, certainly marriage is a reserved power. The 10th Amendment kicks that to the states, but the states can't deny equal protection. And of course, that's a very muddled, weird argument that you can have down in the comments below. An easy way to think of this if you're a kid and you're trying to wrap your head around what reserved powers is to think of it this way. If your parents made notice that they were going to put everything they could tell you to do on the fridge, and they put up there they could set your curfew, and they put on the fridge that they could, decide what color the house is going to be, where you're going to go on vacation, what food you're going to cook for dinner. Those would be delegated powers, powers given to your parents, and you probably wouldn't have a problem with that. But if it wasn't on the list, Let's say, for instance, what posters you could put up in your bedroom. You would make the presumption that that was reserved for you to make up your mind. And that's the concept. So the 10th Amendment limits the power of the federal government by giving that power to the states or respectively to the people. Those are the words of the 10th Amendment. Now, where does it get fishy? It gets fishy when you look at the flexible parts of the Constitution, like the General Welfare Clause, the Elastic Clause, and the Interstate Commerce Clause, all found in Section 1, Article 8. If you're going to read anything in the Constitution, read Article 1, Section 8, and read the 10th Amendment, because you can see that the Constitution is kind of bipolar. For instance, the General Welfare Clause is in the very beginning of Section 8, where it says that one of the jobs of Congress is to provide for the general welfare. Right? Another one is to regulate commerce between the states. Then when you kick in the Elastic Clause, which is the last phrasing in Article 1, Section 8, Congress shall make all laws necessary and proper for executing the foregoing powers, that list, then you start getting muddied. So, if I have the ability to make all laws necessary and proper to provide for the general welfare and to regulate commerce between the states, then definitions count. And we start seeing those being used to expand power. So for instance, regulating commerce between the states has been expanded to mean regulating pollution between the states. That between the states is interstate commerce, so you can't trust one state to regulate pollution. Therefore, Congress is going to regulate pollution. Another example would be, actually, Obamacare uses interstate commerce clause because health insurance is a commerce that can go between states. Drugs like marijuana and why the federal government can still arrest people through the DEA is commerce between states. We wouldn't have Social Security without the General Welfare Clause and the Elastic Clause, or Medicaid or Medicare. And some of you probably are clapping out there saying, absolutely, we shouldn't have those things. See the libertarian argument that if we are going to take the Elastic Clause and Interstate Commerce Clause and stretch them to mean anything, then it nullifies and voids out the 10th Amendment. Why do we have the 10th Amendment if we're not going to use it? And then, of course, you'd say, why are we going to have the Elastic Clause and the General Welfare Clause if we're not going to use it? You could fight it out in the comments below. There you go. I don't know what else to say. I feel bipolar. There you go, guys. Make sure you check out other lectures, subscribe to Hip Use History, and click the link below, and you'll see lots of other channels that you should check out. Where attention goes, energy flows. This is my class, and the bell's going to ring, and I got the kiddies coming in for the learning. So I got to stop the teaching on the YouTubes. We'll see you guys next time.
involved. Because if a district attorney, and you go to court and there's an evidence on a case of assault or whatever, even on a child, where's the evidence? They get people talked into fear, and a lot of people, who never even committed crime because of tactics they do, admit to crimes they never did. 60%, I would say, people who are in jail today just to keep the corporation happy. The jails that we got today are just as bad as they were in the Christian Crusades day. You got solitary confinement, you get bread and water, that's basically what they say you're allowed to get, and humane treatment. And most of these people in jail are there for a traffic ticket or some stupid, ironic thing. Even a traffic ticket, that's under the 10th Amendment. I have the right to travel. I have the right to hunt and fish. Not only that, it violates your First Amendment, your Second Amendment. So when you write your court cases up, we just did another court case on another gentleman dealing with his federal court case on free speech. And he's won all the time, and they still refuse to pay him right now. And so I said, how come you guys haven't filed on the clerks and the judges on this? And they're like, huh? So they just filed the paperwork on the clerk, and they'll be filing on the judges, on the other judges that have been involved. And I said, you file on the clerks and the judges, and they can't run and hide from that stuff because they have administrative rules. If that stuff, a filing turns up and there was nothing done, that means the head of that administration is terminated, and that's by their administrative rules, which successfully they have done on some of these people. So that is the point. We do have rights, not privileges, so long as you're a lawful bloodline native, 5 or more generations. And the 14th Amendment confirmed that, even though the 14th Amendment was never ratified or passed. Excuse me. But the 13th Amendment was ratified and passed on lawyers. That's why they kept it out of the law schools. That's why they kept it out of the colleges and universities and high school education, because attorneys don't have a place. And I mean, we got pages and pages of Supreme Court administrative rules. We got pages on court cases that says attorneys don't have rights. But see that they don't. But see, when you sign your rights over to another individual or power of attorney, I mean, I know people who have actually signed power of attorney over to people, and then all of a sudden they're homeless. That's why when they sign a power of attorney over somebody, you got to make sure you could actually trust them to take a bullet for you. Because otherwise, I don't trust anybody. And you sign a power of attorney over to somebody, what are they doing for you? How are they going to work for you? Are they actually working for you? So power of attorney, that is one thing that is a very hard thing that people don't realize, that a lot of people just sign power of attorneys over to attorneys and individuals, and then when they get thrown out in the street, and I mean, I spoke against some of these bills like this up at the Capitol, the Oregon State House and Senate, because, people sign stuff, and they don't realize technically what they're signing, because somebody will explain it to you. This is what's going on. This is how you're doing it. This is why you're doing it. And people go, oh, okay, but they don't read it. They don't research it. They don't know the truth of it, but they just go along with it. And that is a frustration we are living today, because we got people that are claiming we're a democracy, like Peru University. And then Dennis, I can't remember his last name, who runs the university, he's on YouTube all the time. Don't trust the man. I mean, there's another guy who's out there telling how we need to get rid of the electoral college. If we didn't have the electoral college under false voting for Hillary thief Clinton, she might be in office. And don't forget, the Philippines, from a foreign country, they were voting in this election. Okay? Oh, what do they call that? Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's not part of the United States in any fashion. They were voting. That's why it's good to see when they're getting ready to replace this other judge at the Supreme Court, because Puerto Rico is not part of the United States at all, ever will be. The United States is 100% 48 states, and that's it. Alaska and Hawaii were brought in under corporation administrative rules. So it is knowing what the circumstances of how our country is developed, and I don't mean that in the other point of view of, tearing it down, rebuilding, and all that stuff, developed, because we have to know the history. We have to know the truth. We have to know what the forefathers thought. And like I said, the one thing is that people don't get the forefathers, and I've argued with people about that one. Oh, they all came from foreign countries. We know that. And it's like, okay, we know that they came from foreign countries. But remember, the main thing they did is they left religious prosecution. What did England do to all the prisoners, and especially religious people who wouldn't believe in their system? They sent them to Australia, dropped them off on the borders, on the shore of Australia. That's all in real history. And see, when people get to the point where they're not paying attention to real history, it's like Anderson Cooper, who's sitting out there dictating to, people how they should think and vote. I've even challenged Anderson Cooper, on his network and stuff, to go on with him and let's talk about some real facts here. Oh no, can't do that because if people knew the real facts, And then, I've been, accused of being a gay hater, which what drives me crazy from these gay men and women in the news media. They do that to create lies to hide from their own lies. And excuse me, I grew up in San Francisco, man, and I grew up and I know a lot of what they call gay people. Friends and family, know all this shit. When people sit there and they bash you for stuff that they don't even know what you're living, they don't know your circumstances of life, people have a right to whatever they want to do, so long as they don't cause personal and property damage to another lawful Native American or even an immigrant or visitor to this country. I don't have a problem with visitors. I have a problem with people that come here and they think they have these rights. You don't come to our country and think that you have a right. You have privileges when you come here. And that is the one thing. You're not entitled to rights or entitlements. And I always love it when people say, well, Social Security is not an entitlement. Yes, it is. Go back and read the Social Security law. Go back and read the court cases that we have, too, on our structure, that even in 1937, that the way the Social Security was written up, it was written up constitutionally to give lawful bloodline natives inheritance rights of not being, homeless or deprived or something like that because of what goes on, because of elected and public employees. And remember, elected and public employees and attorneys create the problems we have so that way they can try to guarantee their employment. And it's sad that people do that today, that do that for their own personal financial gain. And, it is nice and it is good that people are waking up across the country to the real truth on these things and our, what they call system. But see, if we are to educate our children to have the children to be the children of the future, okay? Children of the future need to know the Constitution, their rights, know the difference of lawful and legal, separation of legal immigration and not legal immigration, knowing the structure that who has the right versus the privilege. And that is the one thing. And I guess to tell everybody to check your background, learn your family history, know if you're lawful or legal. I've had a lot of people that have got upset with me over that one, going, well, it doesn't matter. I was born on this soil, so I have a constitutional right, and these rights are guaranteed to me by God. Of course, I like pissing them off, going, who's God, what God, why God? Show me God. You know, God is one thing that's a personal belief, like religion. It's a personal belief. You're entitled to that by the Constitution, but you're not entitled to dictate that to other Americans, other people. You don't have a right to tell somebody else what to believe or what to think, you know, or to believe that an eagle is the flying instrument of our country, which that is the terminology of our country, is the eagle. And so it really disturbs me when people sit there and they don't get what we have fought for. We don't get what the natives have sat there and lost their land and bloodline and family and heritage to. And isn't it interesting that all these immigrants are going to come and still steal from the Indian tribes? You know, oh, we're going to allow it because the white man attorney says we can do it. And remember, attorneys and lawyers and all that started in the 13th century from England. Like the Magna Carta is England. So when you go into an Article 1 court, that's why that you can use it, because you're in an Article 1 court. If you're in an Article 3 court, that does not apply because the Constitution supersedes the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta is not even American. The Magna Carta is terrorists from England. You know, and that's where the Pope thinks, and he walks around the world and telling everybody how he owns the world because of the Magna Carta and the Treaty of 1213. Well, I can't come into your home and say that I have a treaty with your neighbor down the street, and because I have a treaty with your neighbor down the street, this treaty supersedes, so I own your home and your assets. And that's what religion, the Pope, and all these religious nuts are out there doing. You know, religion is a dangerous game because children are the ones who lose in religion. They get mind controlled over stuff that they should be taught real history, real facts. They should be going out to target ranges with arms and bows and arrows and learning how to protect themselves and their families first. I mean, today kids don't even know how to use a knife. I mean, I grew up where we used to use knives, you know, basically just to trim wood when we're bored. Grab a stick, trim it up, create something out of it. Kids don't even do that today because they're afraid, you know, and especially in England now that, I think it's, they're working on passing the administrative rule in England that any knife over 12 inches cannot be allowed in your home. You know, then they're talking about eliminating knives and forks and everything has to be plastic. I mean, this is a ludicrousy that we have with these people that are so mental out there, that these people are supposed to be professors and educators. And it's like, how have you people been so convinced to live in dramatic fear instead of learning how to defend your family, learning how to defend yourself, learning how to defend your children, your woman? You know, most people don't get that. They don't know how to defend their women. And so that is the saddest part about going on today. You know, people don't know what it is to defend themselves, protect their families. A lot of people do and don't. Just depends on the way they were brought up by their parents or their grandparents. I mean, and the one thing, the system that you've raised by the system, that is scary, especially for women who've been raised by the system because they are all twisted. And that I personally know because I've dealt with several of them over my life. You know, they believe in some weird stuff when you get really to know them when they've been raised by the system, by, the state of Oregon. At least my experience with the things I've dealt with and my situation have been, a couple of the women that I've dealt with were in the system in Oregon, and I've seen what it does to them, seen what it's done to them. And you try to explain it to them, and at first they're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, you become the enemy because you're not believing in their Bible, or you're not going along with the system. Because that's all they know is the system, what they think is protecting them. So it is sad when we go through these things, and it is one of those things that we need to protect mainly ourselves and the children over, and our country. Because like I said, what it is disgusting. I mean, kids being arrested farting in the classroom. Well, that wasn't written in the Constitution that says passing gas is a crime. So that's what it gets to me, how ludicrous that we have got in this point of what they call society. And remember, society really originally came from England and, what was it called? Spain. So, I mean, you know, we never asked these people to come to our country. You know, stay in your own home. We didn't ask you to come to invade our home. And that's the point when you think about this and you talk to people and you talk about these immigrants. Remember, they're coming and invading your home. They want to sit in your chair. They want to have your refrigerator. They want you to buy their food. They want you to cater to them because now all of a sudden they believe they're kings and queens and that you have no rights. You're to serve them. And most of your immigrants today actually do believe that. If you actually talk to them, you know, they come here and they expect to say, the government's going to take care of me. That's the government's responsibility. No, it is not, because if you actually look up the term government, that's called federal, and the federal is called the Vatican, religion, Church of the Devil people. I mean, that's the way I look at it. No offense to those people out there, but when it comes down to it, you know, either you have a constitutional right, the Constitution gives you a right, religion doesn't give you rights. Religion confuses the hell out of people when it comes down to it. You know, you ask people who have gone to church for a number of years, and you see how confused they are because, I have to go get it verified. I have to, you know, ask a preacher before I can make a decision. Well, that's what I'm saying, is that, you know, it's like I've got this one thing we have on the Facebook site, on the new.org and tracker site. We're a Baptist church, and I've seen this sign even in my own community, and I wish at the time I had cameras, because I would have definitely filmed it, but I even said in my own community, a free thinker is a dangerous thinker. You know, so in other words, you didn't ask the pastor or what they call your God permission. So it amazes me when it comes down to these circumstances how we're not paying attention and opening our minds to the facts around us. Stop interpreting whatever you think you're interpreting. Facts, you know, what was that, Dragnet? You know, Joe Friday, just the facts, man, nothing but the facts. And that's what the courts are supposed to be running on, facts. They cannot bring in statements from a third party, because a third party, unless they were there seeing it and witnessing it and part of the process, a third party, that's called hearsay evidence. And hearsay evidence is inadmissible in court. So when a district attorney, and if you're in a misdemeanor case, the district attorney speaks up, that's hearsay evidence. Say it out loud. Hearsay evidence, you know. And what is the district attorney's authority? By Congress, not Congress, by the Constitution. Congress gives everybody a right. I mean, they give you a right to become a minister. They give you a right to become a lawyer, an attorney. They give you the right, or privilege technically, you know, to become a carpenter or, janitor or mechanic because you get a business license. So you turn your right into the privilege. And all these people say, well, we need a right to work. Get off your ass, go get a job. What do you mean a right to work? You don't have a right to work. Your point is that you have a right to go hunting and fishing and feed yourself. You have a right to collect rainwater, to live on, grow plants. That's your right. You don't have a right that beyond the extent of life. And that's the point. You know, life is a right, not a privilege in our country. And educating us children on this is the hardest part that we're dealing with. So anyhow, I think I've continued on a little bit longer than I wanted to, so we'll open up the floor and see if anybody's got any comments or questions.
All participants are unmuted.
Hey.
Yeah.
It's Goldie.
Hey, Goldie, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I've been listening in between eating and playing video games. Playing solitaire right now. But soaking all this up, it's just overwhelming. There's just so many little itty-bitty things that you have to remember. But really what it comes down to is they have massive control over everything and everybody. Years ago, the state of Jefferson guy, I can't remember his name, asked a question on his page. What doesn't the government have control over? Okay? And I came up with what color I want to dye my hair.
Right.
Okay? And that was it. That's the only thing all of us can think of. I decide what color I want to dye my hair. But now, that was years and years ago. But now, think of it. They control that too, because you can't go certain places if you have the wrong color hair. You know, so they do control that too. You know, maybe 6-7 years ago they didn't, but now they do.
Yeah.
So there really isn't any aspect of any American's life that they don't control.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and with this control comes the taking of your money, because if you don't obey, they'll take your money no matter what. They will nickel and dime you to death.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's wrong. It's fraud.
Right.
It's fraud against the American people. Can you please tell me what isn't fraud? What isn't fraud? Everything is fraud. I have searched my brain so many times trying to figure out what isn't fraud. Do you have a clue?
Well,
Ed?
Well, what ain't
Can
fraud?
you think of anything that isn't fraud?
Well, it could be determined that, yes. It depends on the way you write the court case up on it.
Well, it's not a court case in your personal life.
Well, yeah.
What have you learned in your personal life that isn't fraud, between your taxes, the way you live, to it, even, you can't make too much noise for your neighbors. I mean, everything. You got to tiptoe and whisper while they film you. And America is so tired of this. And it's like, it's got to stop somewhere before it gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stop all this?
Well, I believe it's already worse.
You believe what?
I believe it's already got worse. We're at the extremes right now where people are being shot in the street just like they did in Nazi Germany, Israel, just like they did, in other foreign countries. I mean, prior to 2000s, for an individual to get murdered by a cop, it took a lot. You didn't have to start for to be shot. Go ahead.
That's the good old days, As soon as I grew up,
good old days. It's the days that we need to bring back and live back. We can't call them good old days because then we say it never existed.
It did exist, and it's a shame that our grandchildren will never know this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they will never know what it's like to play freely without worry, or live freely without trauma. Everything is trauma-based. Everything is about hurting somebody else. Every rule, every law, every policy, every procedure, everything, it's colossally diabolical. And it's going on all over the world because they have engineered this for-profit system all over our entire planet.
Right.
And people that we deal with on the internet daily, you and I, we do, you know, have pretty much thrown in the white flag. And, you know, if you can't beat them, join them. And, you know, they're bait-clicking boo stories and selling away parents' rights by not telling them don't listen to that person, don't listen to me. And it's chaos and manic and hurtful for everybody. There's something big going on here, and I know Trump is doing his best to try to stop it without harming anybody himself. He doesn't want to really hurt anybody.
Right.
But he knows the difference between right and wrong and common sense. And he's dealing with these people that have been in power for decades that have engineered all of this. And it's not easy, you know, flipping it over back to what it used to be. You've got to pick away at it and get away with what you can get away with changing without these people sending bombs because they're mad about it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that to us. We're going to send bombs to ourselves and blame you, you know? And, you know, taking away of your free speech and your rights, you know, your constitutional rights. Because really what it comes down to, Ed, is we have to stand firm with the Constitution and our bloodline rights, what we were born for. And that's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? What do you say, Ed?
Well, I mean, you know, that is one thing that we are living with the structure, and that's the whole point about trying to get people educated in this circumstances. No, mainly the kids, you know, and it's taking a slow process when it comes down to it, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
As long as we can get rid of their video games and get them back to the point of life instead of living in the fantasy that's created, because like these video games, you know, everybody's out shooting and killing, and then when things happen around them, even in their own homes, they're not in tune with it. You know what I mean?
Yes, the desensitization that video games and TV and media have engineered.
Right.
Okay? So they don't care about love or family or right or wrong.
Right. And most people don't have a strength of family anymore.
No, we don't. That's true.
You know, and that is the saddest part, because people don't know what family is.
No, a lot of it is they've broken down communication. They don't teach, you know, etiquette is gone. Language skills are gone. They've changed all language skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they've dumbed everybody down. They made the books that changed how we communicate. So that's why nobody can communicate. A lot of people don't know this, but back in 1961-62, when the government was putting on their social experiment of peace, love, flower power, because, yes, that was all government made.
Yep.
While everybody was out there free sex and free drugs, they changed every book. They took everything out of all the books and nobody noticed.
Yep.
That just amazes me. So when people came back down to earth, when things were starting to change, they were telling people, well, we had to change the books for progress. Well, no. That they made everybody believe that, just like, you know, GMO foods are good for you.
Yeah.
It's whatever they have such power. They could just engineer everybody's entire lives from beginning to end, starting, you know, decades and decades and decades ago. and people believe this stuff. People don't even know what true freedom really is because they've never had it and they will never know it. And you can't, and they don't miss what they don't know.
Yeah. Or never had.
Or never had. Like you and our generations, we know this stuff can happen again if we're allowed to. But the corporations that run this country, living a happy, untraumatic life isn't a good enough profit for them. You get more from their studies. You get more profit from hurting people. And that's what they've instilled all over the world.
Right.
And it's like, to get back to what it once was, I mean, people just don't want to give up their phones and their TVs and their luxuries. They don't want to, turn everything off and go back to playing games and playing outside, And then the government putting all the guns on the streets.
Well, no, it's not the government, because we the people are the government's elected and public servants.
Well, elected, you got to realize some of this voting, the patronage voting, has been totally engineered and controlled for a long time. Like exactly what the Eugene George case did is what Eugene won over. Okay, he was told who to vote for. And if he didn't vote for who he was supposed to vote for, he couldn't hold a job. And it's still to this day just like that.
Yes, especially in unions, yes.
Yeah. And so they have, it's so, the engineering is very, very intricate. And it's woven into the fabric of our everyday lives, like fine silk, to make it look all natural so nobody notices.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes all the way down to it, the one thing Americans do have is the Constitution. That's it. We have to regain control of American lives through our Constitution. And we need more people to step up to the plate and understand. That's why I appreciate your show, Zed, because you are really good at Constitution. And these people need to learn this stuff. Because, like you said, they're not teaching it in school. They might teach you the preamble or something like that, but, they don't have the children memorize the Constitution anymore. And they've taken it out, pretty much out of the schools. They've taken out the anthem. And they have the power to do this because they've all put themselves in place to make sure it happens. This draining of the swamp better happen pretty quick, and it better be all of them, because that's the only way that we're going to fix this.
And I
there's
want
a lot of people out there guilty. I'd like to see it happen. In my lifetime, I'd like to see that happen. Everybody who's been wronged, lied to, cheated, injured by the other breed of people, get due process, get their rights, get their constitutional rights the way we were meant to get them, and not
titled,
convoluted. Yeah.
That is
take away some of that entitlement.
And what we're dealing with right now is that the First Amendment case that I've been posting all around Facebook, which I'm going to be doing again. Apparently, Facebook is taking this new case down that just happened on, I got the paperwork on it August 22nd, or 26th, and the case happened the 22nd.
You'll have to send that to me so I can post it.
I sent it 5 times. I went back on your messenger, and it's gone. And I went on to a couple other people, deal that I sent it to them. They said it violates Facebook community standards.
Well, you know what? Hey, send it to me because they don't touch me.
Yeah, I'll send it to you in an email. But it's like
okay. Yeah.
I've been posting this case up, folks, and you've got to comprehend that these guys.
They might limit who sees it, but they don't know the true law. You know, I was dealing with some parents this morning that really were 100% clueless about real law at all. You know.
Right.
And it's too hard for them. It's too hard to learn. They want you to just tell them what to do. Okay? And that takes a lot of time just to tell people what to do every day.
Yeah.
You know, and to teach, you know, you and I have had years and years and years of education and learning, and you can't just tell somebody this overnight or in one sentence. There's a lot to learn. But you do very well putting your stuff out there. And I try my best too. People need to know, you know, they've infringed upon our rights, and here is what it's really supposed to be. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's absolutely for real. And, you know, more and more people are catching on. You know, that's the good news. But we need more. We need a lot more people to catch on to this, Ed. And learn right from wrong and to stand up for their true rights, the way they were meant to be given to us, you know?
Yeah.
So get that out to me as soon as you can so we can get it out there. And have you put it up on your page yet? New Urban
I posted all on my pages.
Okay. I'll have to see if I can find it off there. I know I'm lazy too. Just send it to me.
Yeah, I'll get that.
Sometimes we get lazy. Just send it to me. That'll go faster than having to open up pages and search and all that kind of stuff. I can get it out there instantly, and I will do that. It needs to be out there. Winning cases, actual winning cases, are far and few between, if any. You know. Well, we know of one.
They let a few slip through the cracks, and everybody else is supposed to go through it. When these things ain't supposed to slip through a crack, they're supposed to be basically a uniform commercial case.
Now, did it set a precedent?
I haven't really read the entire case.
Okay, I'll look.
Got it. But yeah, I would imagine it has. You know, I did send it out to the other associates too, so that way they had it. I emailed it to them.
Okay.
So, I mean, and they don't want people to know their rights. They don't want people to know that they have rights instead of privileges.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so I mean, we're living in a day of deceit. And I don't know where people don't comprehend the facts to living in a real world on it.
Well, no, people got to realize this fix that Trump is trying to do isn't an easy fix. You got to realize decades and decades of, you know, installing this into this, you know, system, the syndicate, by the syndicate, that it's not an easy fix. You know, it's not. It can't happen overnight. A lot of it can change if they just throw all these people in jail. And why they're not in jail now already, I just have no idea.
I agree with you there.
It's taken a little bit longer than it really should be because there is hard evidence, you know, and I think what has to happen is there's certain people that gave certain people immunity, fake immunity, and those you got to take down the top people who gave the bottom people the immunity.
Right.
So it gets very complicated, you know, and yeah, we're in a rush because as every day goes by, somebody else is hurt or dies, loses their kids, loses their money, loses their houses. Okay, we're waiting to see, yeah, the economy might be booming, but the more money they're making, the more money they're taking. And that's got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially certain states are worse than others, like California and Illinois, Oregon. So he's got to do better. He's got to step up.
Got it.
And I'm counting on him. I know his personality. I have confidence that not that he's going to do the right thing, because he's already doing the right thing, that he's going to accomplish what he set out to accomplish.
Well, that's what we're now, Goldie, let's give somebody else a chance if somebody else would like
okay. Go ahead. Go for it.
So let's open up
later.
Anybody else would like to add something? Anybody? Okay.
Who's on your line, Ed?
Got a lot of people.
Oh, are you sure they're on there?
Yeah.
They're being awful quiet.
There's a lot of people listen and don't talk.
Aw, come on, we want to hear. We want to have an educational show today.
Yeah, but some people are scared or speak up, or some people just don't like talking and they just want to listen. So you got to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Ed,
go ahead.
Question.
Who's this?
That Magna Carta. You said that it was foreign, but didn't Congress write it beforehand? And
it did not write it. Magna Carta was written in 1315 is when it passed. It was written in 1314 after the 1213 agreement with King John and the Pope, when he was stopped murdering and committing crimes.
So what was remind me again? What was the first one that the Congress wrote right after fighting the American Revolution?
In which way are you talking about what the Congress wrote? Because Congress didn't accept the Magna Carta until 1912.
Ed.
I'm talking about after the American Revolution. As soon as we won, they accepted something, or they came up with something, but it was too weak. The states were separated. There was really no teeth in the first or pre-Constitution. So they had to go back and rewrite the Constitution, the one we have now, which actually has a lot more teeth. That's why it's lasted so long.
No, they didn't rewrite the Constitution at all. They added amendments to it because the Constitution is still the same the way it was written in 1775 in administration when they passed it in 1776 after the Revolutionary War. It hasn't changed at all.
Hey, Ed.
Go ahead.
Just a correction. Basically, commonly called Magna Carta, is a charter of rights agreed by King John of England at Runnymede near Windsor on 15th of June 1215. You were 100 years late.
And what country was that in?
England.
Correct.
But it was 1215, not 1315.
No, 13. Well, I know it was written in there, but 1315 is when the contract with King John and the Pope was written, and that's why the Magna Carta became enforced, because the Pope sent out his saints, and they were murdering, and that's when King John picked up his swords and arms and went back and started beheading every religious man they saw, and that's why the Pope and King John wrote the Magna Carta Treaty.
Well, no, right here it states, first drafted by Archbishop of Canterbury to make peace between the unpopular king and group of rebel barons. It promised protection of church rights, protection of the barons from illegal imprisonment, access to swift justice, and limitations.
Speak a little closer to the mic. You can barely hear you.
Okay. Basically, I don't see 13 anything in here. It's 1215, 1225, 1217. At the end of the war, 1217, it formed part
Type in 1213 King John.
King John of England.
Yes.
Right. I don't see how he could have survived a full 100 years if you're saying 13 something.
It is 13. Was it 1213? And the Magna Carta was written in 1215.
Right. There you go. But you were saying 1315.
Oh, all right. So I was definitely way off on. Thank you for the correction.
just getting the facts.
No problem. I appreciate to be corrected.
Nothing but the facts, ma'am.
That's right. That's right. Just like Joe Friday saying a TV show Dragnet. You know. But yeah, and so when that was implemented, and then that was an English structure, and then they brought it in, and the reason why they could use the Magna Carta is in administrative courts. Legislative courts, because the Supreme Court under legislative court administration put it in 1912, if I'm not mistaken. And it was put in the back door, and there's a court case in 1967 on it. And I have to refresh my mind on that one before I speak on it. But there was a court case with the Magna Carta where it was allowed in the court, and that's what released people. And there's been a lot of people been released over it in the corporation courts too. And when you type it in, it's called the Treaty of 1213 with King John. And you'll see it. There's several groups that come up and have it. There's one group that has a certified filing of it from England in their group structure, and it's just getting this stuff out. And no, I don't have a problem being corrected, especially when I'm saying something wrong. You know, so, I mean, that's the whole point. We're supposed to take criticism with respect to one another, not just sitting there and arguing about stupidity. You know, so yeah, and so people are going that questioning things on the Article 1 and Article 3 courts. And please type in Article 1 versus Article 3 court. You'll even see some stuff comes up from the court on it. And that is the most important thing, is to know these things that are correct. Oh, and he's going by Oregon Library of Congress, and of course not everything's in that one. See, it's knowing where to find your research and get it correctly done. And I do believe we have the Magna Carta up on the website, and I do believe we have the treaty of both of them up on the website, the Treaty of 1213 and the Treaty of 1215. At least we should have. So people get to know that. And yes, it was a religious treaty. And that's the one thing that people need to realize, what religion is and how they do this under the name of what they call God. I mean, you know, I grew up, I went to Roman Catholic school. I grew up that way. You know, I went to catechism, been through all that stuff myself. So it's when you come to the reality. So anybody else got anything they would like to add? No other comments at this point, huh? Well, if that's the
Can you still hear me, Ed?
Yeah, go ahead, Goldie.
Okay. I don't have anything to add either. You know, to me, dates don't mean anything. It's the content that matters.
Right.
And but it's always good to know. Dates are always good to know. Dates aren't one of my strong issues. Okay, dates, time, numbers. but for the American public, your website is absolutely great. We need to get it out there more, and we need to get a lot more people educated to the truth. And I know I appreciate everything you do, Ed, and you're a really great guy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your show tonight. It was wonderful.
Cool. Anyhow, if we got nothing else to add, then what we'll do is we'll just call it an evening and meet next Saturday. I got a video that I think it was 11 minutes long that I found that was excellent, giving a general idea of the Constitution and freedom rights, not privileges. So it is one of those.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that would be good for the people. You know, I think that's a very confusing subject because people weren't raised that way.
Well, at least that we think it is, but we don't know what other people were raised by. We have a general concept of what we think by the media or what we've been indoctrinized to believe of being raised. You know, because it's like, you know, growing up in the Midwest compared to the West Coast, you know, they were grown up or raised, you know, what they still go by as racism, and it's like, what the hell? We didn't deal with that on the West Coast, at least not by my personal knowledge, because what I grew up into in the Bay Area, we had not really racial things. People didn't get in arguments with each other. People didn't go after each other. You know, you knew what side of the street to stand on, and you didn't cross it, basically. You weren't afraid, you know, and then the groups would back you up if you backed the groups up.
Yeah, and maybe next week we could talk about the case you just sent me. I was just looking at it. This ought to be a very interesting conversation.
Oh, so you finally saw it then?
Yeah, I just opened it up.
Okay.
I'm just opening it up now.
Yeah, and that's on the First Amendment case I just went through a few days ago. And so it is that they are getting it, doing it. You know, it seems that we've got some of the domestic terrorisms out of office. You know, and I still don't comprehend how that terrorist Obama is still in the media with that Michael or Michelle, whatever you want to call him this week. You know, and then people say, you know, it's interesting because you could definitely tell, you know, body structures, and people's DNA do not change when you have surgery. You're born a man, you still have the DNA as a man.
That's true.
You're born a woman, you still have the DNA as a woman.
Oh, and speaking of DNA, you know, the reason they're allowing people to put X on their birth certificates, it's because it's easier to steal people's identities later on.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's just amazing what it's really for. I think it cracks me up.
Right.
So I see how many pages are here. How big is this? 50 pages. Oh, this is a breeze to read. That won't take me too long.
So anyhow, I'll let you go.
So I'll read that.
We'll tag up on that one later. And
okay.
I would like to say, may the Great Spirit and Mother Earth look over you, bless you, and the Creator bless us all and take care of us.
Well, thank you. Good night, Ed.
Thank you very much for listening to Education with Ed. It is Sunday, October 28th, 2018. It is currently 6:48 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and hopefully you've enjoyed the show. He hit 50 out of 83 so far today. So,
I did that well, huh?
Yeah, you're starting to step up again. That's good. Now we may be able to get up to 120 eventually.
No. I think that was the record one time.
Yep, that's what I'm hoping to get back up to. I mean, you know, it's just...
Give me a bad enough time as it is on that. I don't need to keep going that way.
When you're tired or you get distracted, you use quite a bit. So I get
I know.
You know?
Yeah, I know you know.
You know.
Yeah. You know, because I know you know.
Okay, that's about 54 now. right.
Oh, okay. So you tricked me into adding some more. That was good.
Yep.
God, I hate biting into that lure.
All right. Well, we'll see you next Saturday with Disclaimers by Ed Johnston. He'll have something more informative. And, well, have a good night.